Right, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. It's almost 10 o'clock. Hintayin lang natin yung iba na pumapasok pa and then magsisimula na tayo. Tinitingnan ko yung mga pangalan. I don't think I've really seen your names. I mean, all of your names right now. Until now. Ang interesting pala ng ibang pangalan nyo. There's Chestine. There's Chestine. And then there's Pochi. And Arian. And then there's, I'm not sure if it's Lay or Laye. I'm guessing it's Lay. Then there's Alina. Ang gaganda ng pangalan Mira. There's Masayuki. Very interesting names. Very, very unique. Okay. It's 10 o'clock. I guess we can begin. No? Ang pag-aaralan natin ngayong umaga, ay well, bahagi ito ng magiging exam nyo no, sa darating na Sabado. But more importantly, I think importante itong susunod na dalawang chapters, importante para as basis, no, para sa inyong basic na understanding or appreciation ng trabaho ng gobyerno. Or magiging trabaho, well, especially now, no, kasi may bagong administrasyon at makakatulong sa palagay ko na magkaroon kayo ng at least ng appreciation kung ano ang trabaho ng gobyerno at kung ano ang maaari niyong hanapin, lehitimong hanapin sa performance ng namumuno sa bansa. Okay, so ang pag-uusapan natin ngayon really is yung public choice o yung role ng gobyerno, and then pag-uusapan naman natin yung konsepto ng which is yung efficiency versus equity, no, which is a subfield in economics. So yung role ng gobyerno, may subfield sa economics yan, ang tawag ay public economics. Tapos yung role naman, yung basic question ng how do we pursue development is under development economics. Kasi pag sinabing development yan, ang tanong dyan is, when we pursue development, should it be based on efficiency, which is yung pinag-aaralan natin, or what should be how to allocate or how to decide how much labor or capital or how much of a good you're going to buy based on yung mga efficiency conditions na pinag-usapan natin. Medyo may konting math, no? But kasi theoretical siya. But nevertheless, they point to the fact that in economics, when we're making decisions based on efficiency, these are the indicators, you know, that guide us towards efficiency. Pero the other side of the coin is the question of equity, because not all the time is something efficient also equitable. Kasi di ba katulad nga nung sinabi ko, kapag minsan may pagbanggaan ng efficiency and equity, at isa sa objective ng government o ng mga namumuno ay ang pagbalance ng efficiency versus equity. Kasi wisdom or the wise management of society or the wise leadership in society cannot just rely on either efficiency or equity. They have to be balanced. Okay, and that takes skill. That takes a lot of I guess acuity, both political as well as appreciation of development. Okay, so umpisahan muna natin doon sa chapter 16, which discusses the role of government. No? So ano ba ang role ng government? Ito yung under sa purview ng public economics na tinatawag. It's a subfield in economics. So far, kung hindi nyo pa napapansin, just in case lang naman na hindi nyo pa napapansin, itong third part ng semester ay application ng mga teorya na pinag-aralan natin nung nakaraang dalawang exams. Kaya nandito tinitingnan natin yung labor economics, no, yung subfield sa economics na tinatawag na labor economics. Ginagamit natin yung mga napag-aralan nating theories to analyze yung phenomena sa labor market, no, particularly yung wealth creation at saka yung wage, no, we try to explain, or we explain how wages are formed, what's the economic basis for a wage rate that you might get, and also explains why there are wage differentials. Now, sumunod nga itong pag-aaral naman natin. Sumunod yung application ng economic theory sa management ng natural resources at saka ng environment. Kaya doon naman yung konsepto ng externality, negative externality in particular, and how we manage that. Kasi importanteng aspeto din yan ng pamumuhay sa isang lipunan o na pagmaneho o pag-manage ng economy. So itong pangatlo naman na field na pag-aaralan natin is the role of government. No? So itong chapter 16, which is public economics. Okay, so having said that, please allow me to turn off my video para maging maayos tong sharing na to. Share screen. Okay, so I hope nakikita nyo ang aking screen. Ito ang title, no? Government Taxation and Expenditures. Bakit Government Taxation and Expenditures? Kasi dito, sa dalawang ito, ang nag-focus o umiikot ang trabaho ng gobyerno. Okay, so una, ano ba ang role, ano ba ang papel ng isang gobyerno sa isang market economy? No? Kasi mula pa sa umpisa, sinabi na natin, dito sa klase na to, yung market economy yung ideal. Market economy means that you allow or you let the market forces, yung buyers and sellers, to interact without interference. Ibig sabihin, yung voluntary, hindi sila pinipilit, at saka walang nananakot sa kanila. No? So, through the interaction of buyers and sellers, nabubuo ang presyo ng isang produkto, nagkakaroon ng signal sa market kung ano ang dapat i-produce. Ito din ang gagabay para sa mga manufacturers kung paano nila dapat produce kasi sumusunod sila sa least cost na prinsipyo, etc. No? So doon sa lahat ng discussion na yun, kung mapapansin nyo, naka-focus yung discussion doon sa voluntary interaction. So ano ang role ng government? Ano ba? Bakit may gobyerno, di ba? Laissez-faire nga, dapat pababayaan mo yung market na mag-operate mag-isa. Kaya ito naman ang dalawang punto tungkol sa papel ng gobyerno. Una is, while the market promises to deliver efficiency, no, ito yung una kong punto kanina, which means lowest cost for maximum quantity of goods. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng layman's term ng efficiency. That you produce the most at the least cost. Basic definition ng efficiency. No? Ang assumption doon is if you deliver more goods at the least cost, then you're using resources very wisely or efficiently. And at the same time, it allows for more goods to be available to consumers. And then since ang basis naman natin for happiness is consumption, so sinasabing kung mas maraming goods produced, then happiness or welfare of citizens increases kasi there are more goods available, no? Because efficiency was attained. So, but the point that this chapter is trying to say is that even though the market promises to deliver efficiency, the real world is not as exact. Ibig sabihin, it is more dynamic than what basic theory tells us. Kasi the theory that we've studied so far, they work under very ideal conditions. Pero alam naman natin that the world is not ideal. And there are many things, many variables, there are many things that happen in the real world that might push us away from delivering, or that might push market away from delivering efficiency. So, but kasi according to and also what we've studied, no, an efficient market needs an entity that will provide the ideal conditions needed for the market to function properly. So in the real world, no, well, where conditions and variables are less conducive to assist the market to become efficient, that highlights the need for government, essentially. Kasi the market, an efficient market, cannot operate without an assurance that all of the conditions needed for efficiency are present. Ano ba mga conditions na to? Yung conditions na napag-aralan natin, di ba, for efficiency to happen. Una, walang takutan. Walang takutan. Ibig sabihin, the buyers and sellers voluntarily buy or sell. Hindi sila tinatakot. Pangalawa, that contracts will be upheld. Alright? So kung merong kontrata, may pinag-usapan ang buyer at seller, then kung ano yung napagkasunduan nila should be upheld. Ibig sabihin dapat mapatupad. So contracts must be implemented or must be executed. So kung ideal ang mundo, hindi mo kakailanganing magpilitan. Pero alam naman natin na marami sa mga tao ay hindi kaaya-ayang ugali, maaaring tumakbo sa kontrata, maaaring hindi magbayad, etc. No? So, kakailanganin ng isang entity that will enforce all of these conditions. So, pangatlo pa, yung information. Kasi kapag magkaiba ng information ang buyer at seller, then pwedeng magkaroon ng dayaan. So the way that that's minimized is for information to be equal to both. So isa pa yan sa mga conditions na kakailanganing mapatupad, no? So as we progress, as we discuss more, makikita niyo pa yung ibang mga pangangailangan sa isang external entity. An external entity that has the authority to implement or to execute rules and laws, and to make sure that the conditions for market efficiency are preserved. Okay? So, the market needs a force that will ensure physical security for market players. So sabi ko nga, dapat walang takutan. A judicial system that will enforce contracts and police powers that make sure that abuses, pollution, and tendency for monopoly are prevented. These are all, if you notice, these are all conditions that will create market inefficiency, that will lead to market imperfections. So an external entity like government that has judicial powers, then that legislative powers and executive powers that can enforce all of the contracts, that can assure the security of all the players in the market. Importanteng maintindihan natin itong lahat, and hopefully mapaunawa din to sa iba, na ang role ng government ay hindi para mag-amass ng pera, actually, or mag-create ng disinformation. Actually, on the contrary, dapat ang gobyerno ang nagtutulak sa tamang impormasyon. Nang sa ganon, ang mga mamamayan ay makapagdedesisyon ng tama. Okay. So, nandyan na rin yung that it must ensure physical security for the market players. Because why? Because if that's not assured, then people can take advantage of others and can exploit others or can force others to do what they don't want to do. And that is against the conditions, or that's a violation of the conditions for efficiency. So this is the fundamental role of government in a market economy. Sa tandaan niyo, ito ang fundamental na trabaho ng gobyerno. At ito ay nasa ilalim ng tinatawag na public choice theory in economics. Kaya siya public choice kasi we're going to look at how government or how public entities make choices. Okay, kasi napag-aralan na natin yung private choices this time, yung gobyerno or choices, how does the government choose? Kasi alam natin how does the consumer choose? Ang kanyang objective is to maximize utility. How does the firm choose? Objective niya is to maximize profit. But how does the government choose? Theoretically, the government is supposed to maximize social welfare. Okay, ibig sabihin, entirety of society, which means both buyers and sellers. And all sectors of society. That's why it's a very tricky. It's a very it's not easy being a leader, supposedly, because or a public or a government leader, because that's what you need to do. That's the basic objective. Okay, what else? Further, the government also supplies the fundamental elements for the economy to grow. Kasi nga ang objective niya is to maximize social welfare, di ba? So, isa sa mga trabaho o sa mga inaasahan sa gobyerno ay to make sure that all the conditions necessary for the economy to grow are there. Bakit? Kasi if the economy does not grow, then we're not maximizing social welfare. Economic growth, I must emphasize though, is it's necessary, but it is not a sufficient condition for development. There is a difference between economic growth and economic development. Development is a richer concept. Growth just pertains to the increase in income, the increase in GDP, the increase in GNP. But the objective of a wise government, of a true government, is development, wherein growth is only one aspect. Kasi development also pertains to the growth, essentially, the quality of life. And so you must break down quality of life into different aspects, one of which is education, or access to education, better access to healthcare, security, and human rights. Those are parts of development. So without if one is stunted, then you only have partial development. If you only have growth, actually, if you only have increase in GNP or GDP, you only have growth. You do not necessarily have development. Okay. Now, the issue arises when there is a blur between what the role of government is and when it starts to infringe on the role of the private sector. Isa to sa mga slippery slope, ika nga, no? Kasi may mga instances na ang gobyerno pala ay sumasaklaw na doon sa role ng private sector. Ano ba ang role ng private sector? Production, consumption, no? So, ang role ng government is to make sure that those conditions needed for least cost production, for the most ideal consumption, etc., are present. But there are cases when the government, because it exercises political power, might be infringing on the role of the private sector. Okay? So, let's talk about some basic concepts. Now, what are the major instruments at the disposal of government? Ito yung mga policy instruments na tinatawag. No? Police power is, of course, there. At saka yung creation of laws. But all of these are supposed to be in support of the objectives or the execution of the plans of government online. So, but the basic, yung tinatawag na basic policy instruments, those instruments that are used for policy making, kasi yung security, police, military, etc., they're not policy. They're more of enforcement of laws or policies. No? But ito yung mga instruments at the disposal or policy instruments. One is the power to tax or taxation. It is a powerful force kasi tax can shape behavior, di ba? Kapag tumataas ang tax sa isang bagay, there's less tendency for that activity to be pursued. So taxes can change the course of private expenditures and direction of investments. So kung mataas, let's say, ang taxation sa cigarettes, then there would be less investment sa cigarettes kasi less profitable. No? So the power to tax. The next is capacity to spend o yung kakayahang gumastos. Kasi ang government, through the revenues that it collects, has the power to spend. At ang laki ng pera ng gobyerno, no? As you may know, trilyones ang gastusin ng gobyerno. So napakalaki ng potential impact niya sa economy. Kasi yung capacity niya to buy is huge. No? Tsaka marami yung pang expenditure, yung pattern ng expenditures niya actually can shape an economy as well. Kasi yung when it spends, no, it stimulates the economy kasi buyer din siya eh. So bibili din siya ng papel, bibili din siya ng iba't ibang mga goods and services. So that will stimulate those suppliers, no? Kasi magkakaroon sila ng additional na income at huge income kasi ang daming pera ng gobyerno, di ba? Walang yayaman sa gobyerno sa Pilipinas. So walang pinakamayaman na spender ang gobyerno. So gobyerno din meron siyang, because of its ability to spend, pwede siyang create ng conditions. Okay, if you follow certain behavior, I will give you money. No, I will give you yung conditional cash transfer kung familiar kayo dyan. That is a way to shape behavior kasi ang objective doon sa CCT ay pag-aralin ng mga magulang ang kanilang mga anak. So sinasabi ng gobyerno, kapag hindi nag-absent yung anak nyo sa eskwela, meron kayong additional 1,500 or 1,800. Hindi ko na alam kung magkano ngayon yung CCT. Pero may ganon. No? So it can shape behavior. And also, role ng government is to take care of its citizens. That no citizen dies of hunger, and that some sort of income reallocation or income distribution is followed. Kasi bagamat merong mga iba't ibang klase ng mga mamamayan, hindi naman pwedeng may mamatay sa gutom. Kasi may kapangyarihan ng government to prevent that kasi nga meron siyang kakayahang bumili. Okay. So the third is the power to regulate. Ito na yung enforcement o imposition ng policies at ng mga batas. Government has the power to control and direct people's behavior to perform and refrain from certain activities. By passing laws and criminalizing specific behavior, citizens are led towards behavior that will not harm society. Tandaan nyo, the power to regulate is only there to make sure that people are not harmed. All right? To perform for people to refrain from certain activities. But those activities must be because they will harm other people. They cannot be something that just offends the leader. All right. So kailangan yung power to regulate is used properly. It's used in accordance with, I guess we could say efficiency pa din. Kasi when you start running after people, not because they're behaving in a harmful way, but because they offend government, then it destabilizes society. Because now you have fear instead of peace. And for an economy to thrive, there has to be peace. All right? So the functions of government so first is improving economic efficiency. This is the central role of government in a market economy. No? So this means assisting the market towards reaching the desirable outcome of optimal allocation. Pinag-usapan na natin dyan, hindi ko na i-elaborate pa. So efficiency, improving economic efficiency. So kailangan dito ang gobyerno ay may technical skills in a sense kasi kailangan meron siyang pagkakaintindi. So what constitutes or what are the variables or what are the things that will lead to efficiency. Kaya hindi po pwedeng wala siyang understanding and appreciation of the technical aspects of the economy. All right. Second is reducing economic inequality. So we live in a world where there's a lot of inequality, and the role of government is to reduce that as much as possible. Why do we not like inequality? Well, you can look at it from the perspective of justice, kasi people should at least have the basic needs and services. But also, if you have a wide disparity, no, malaki ang ang agwat ng mga mayayaman o ng mga haves and have-nots, no, yung pagkamalaki yan, that creates tension. You really don't want that because there are many things that could happen as a result of wide disparity in or wide in income inequality or inequality. Hindi lang kasi ang inequality nasa income. It could also be political inequality or social inequality. Kapag may naaapi, kapag ka merong naagrabyado merong na-exploit. Those are inequality kasi may imbalance ka of power. So, isa sa mga hinahanap natin sa development, isa sa mga aspeto ng development is really the reduction of inequality in various forms, from economic inequality to social inequality to political inequality. So when there is inequality, it's actually the role of government to step in to prevent inequality. So bantayan ninyo that your government does not initiate inequality. And hopefully something can be done. All right. So another is the third function of government is to stabilize the economy through macroeconomic policies. So stabilization of the economy. Bakit? Kasi there are many variables, there are many things that happen in the real world. No? As many of them actually create or poses disruptions or causes disruptions in the economy. Diba? Nagkaroon ng halimbawa lang naman nito, no, dahil nga martial law baby ako, halimbawa nagkaroon ng crackdown, no, sa mga perceived na hindi kaalyado, then that will create yung uncertainty and risks. So that could cause and that could create panic. And we don't like panics kasi pagka uncertainty, there's a high degree of risk and uncertainty, and people panic, behavior will become erratic. And you don't want that. An economy cannot thrive under an umbrella of uncertainty, risk, and fear. So it could result in, flight of the flight of investments. It could make people not want to buy kasi baka they might hold on to their money because of fear. People may not want to save and invest as a result of fear. So you have to stabilize the economy. The government's role is to make sure that all of these things disappear so that behavior will normalize. So people will buy normally, will invest normally, etc. So if the government fails to stabilize the economy, all right, then recession and even depression could ensue. Pag sinabing depression, hindi ito mental health. No? It's an economic term which means that sunod-sunod na recession is what we call a depression, yung hindi na makaangat, no, yung ekonomiya. So lahat ng ito o nahihirapan na umangat, no, hindi naman sa hindi ka makakangat. Nagkaroon na naman ng depression sa mga iba't ibang bansa sa mundo. Eventually nakakaangat naman, but it takes so much effort, no, to lift the country out of depression. Okay. So another function of government is to conduct international economic policy. Kasi lalo na ngayon, no, sa panahon ng globalization, ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas ay heavily interacting with economies of the world of different countries. So isa sa mga role ng government is to make sure that the place of the Philippines in the international economy is protected and safe. So ito yung role na kung saan we make sure that we have good relationships with our trading partners para hindi mapuputol ang flow ng goods na from the other countries. Ganun din naman na yung goods natin na binibenta natin sa ibang bansa are also well accepted. Kasi kapag may hidwaan ang mga bansa, meron tayong kaaway, hindi natin kabate, maaring tumigil yung trade between those two countries. And so of course, maapektuhan yung ating mga mamamayan, lalo na nga yung mga exporters. No? So ganun din naman yung access natin to certain goods and services na from abroad, hindi na natin ma-access kapag may hidwaan. So government must make sure that conditions for healthy international trade are present, including what we call the removal of trade barriers. Kasi trade barriers are those that inhibit the natural flow of trade between countries. This could be in terms of yung mga tariffs. May mga tariffs na nag-exist, but normally itong tariffs na to are ang objective is actually to have free trade na tinatawag. Ibig sabihin, removal of tariffs. para nang sa ganon, yung trade between countries flows very nicely and very freely. Nagkakaroon lang ng mga trade, mga tariffs na ganyan. Well, for one, dahil nangangailangan ng revenues ng government. The other is sometimes in retaliation, no? Or in retaliation because may isang bansa na nag-impose ng tariff, mag-impose din ng tariff yung trading partner niya. And sometimes also, trade barrier is temporary. No? Tinatanggap naman yan sa international community. Diba? No? Impose muna kami ng tariff, halimbawa, kasi we're trying to protect an infant industry, yung tinatawag na infant industry argument, na kasi meron kami, meron muna tayong tariff sa mga kotse na pumapasok sa Pilipinas kasi gusto nating maging kahit papaano temporary lang naman para maging competitive naman yung halimbawa meron tayong umuusbong na car making industry sa Pilipinas, no? Yung infant industry argument for trade, for protectionism na tinatawag. Infant industry kasi bata, baby pa yung industry, so pinoprotektahan. Tinatanggap yan ng yung mga trading partners, pero ang idea doon is temporary lang yan, hindi pwedeng panghabang panahon. Otherwise, magre-retaliate na yung trading partner mo. Okay, so ano pa ba ang mga coordination of macroeconomic policies between different countries is also a function of government. So we make sure na yung ating let's say financial sector natin o yung mga macroeconomic policies natin are consistent with, or at least will not prevent the trading or the international relationship between countries. So we make sure, government must make sure our macro policies are aligned with other countries, no? So yung paano natin yung let's say mga pricing natin is accordance with efficiency, etc. No, kapareho nung ibang mga bansa para mayroong smooth, no, na interaction between countries. So sometimes yung itong tinatawag na I should have worded this differently. It's not conducting international economic policies, but also another aspect of economic policies is assistance, providing assistance. Isa yan sa mga actually dapat sinama ko na lang to doon sa nauna. No? Yung part ng international economic policy is providing assistance when needed. Yung nagkaroon ng disasters, it's the government actually that makes a decision regarding how much to assist and who to assist. No? Okay, tinanong ko rito, is there such thing as a free lunch? Kasi kung minsan, yung assistance na natatanggap ng isang bansa, kunyari free lunch na tinatawag, kasi ibig sabihin parang libre, pero ang totoo, may objective. Hindi naman kung minsan napakagarapalan ng objective, no? But maaaring it's to endear the country to that country that's being assisted for future possible whatever relationship or cooperation or international cooperation. So sometimes assistance are not free lunches na tinatawag. Hindi sila libre talaga. May hindi sila NSA, sila ay may strings kung minsan. Pero very very subtle. No? Bihira naman yata yung bansa na very, well, maybe except China. Medyo garapalan China pagdating sa mga strings attached. Pero kadalasan subtle yung strings attached, no? Yung parang nanliligaw, ganyan. Okay, and then the last is the protection of the global environment. That's because the natural environment, tulad nga ng napag-usapan natin dati, is a national asset. It's the natural environment in the Philippines is a natural asset. So ang steward ng natural assets o yung sabihin national assets o yung yaman ng bansa ay ang gobyerno. Sila ang steward, sila ang protector. Sila kasi yung mayroong resources and power and authority to protect the natural environment. So isa yan sa isa final function ng government. So pagdating sa expenditures, para lang sa inyong kaalaman, government expenditures are essentially divided into two. Expenditures of the local government, yan yung mga LGUs nyo, yung mga municipalities, mga cities, ganyan, mga mayor, yan ang nagdidesisyon tungkol sa gastusin sa local level, at yung national government naman, yan na naman yung executive, no, yan ang Malacanang, yan naman ang nagdidesisyon tungkol sa mga gastusin nationally. So yung mga activities na pang-national instead of local, no. So kaya ang mga yung mga what you call departments of the DENR, NEDA, etc., those are national agencies, whereas ang local government naman would be yung office ng mayor, yung mga planning offices within the city, no, yung municipal or city planning offices, those are local offices. So that is the system of expenditures that's in place in the country. So what happens is that taxes are collected. There are also local taxes na kung mapapansin nyo, merong municipal tax. But generally, all taxes go to the national government, and the national government ang magpa-partition. Meron tayong protocols or meron tayong mga regulations na nasa batas na, no, kung magkano ang makukuha ng mga local governments. Hindi naman ito nasa whim lang ng government na hindi kayo bumoto kay BBM, hindi ko kayo bibigyan ng pera. Hindi ganoon, kasi meron naka-codify naman na yan na first class municipality ganito, or first class city, ito yung makukuha niyang yung percentage na makukuha niya sa budget, etc., etc. So meron namang nakabatas yan. So ang maaari na lang na maging additional na gastusin, no, na kakailanganin na maaaring hingin ng isang local government ay mga special projects. Pero yung budget for operations ng city, naka-codify na yan. No? So meron silang, depende sa collection ng national government or collection ng bansa, in other words, no? Kasi lahat ng taxes, lahat, including yung mga payments, yung mga protected areas, etc., yung mga public lands, etc. Lahat ng pera na nakakalap sa mga assets na yan napupunta sa national government, at national government naman ang gagawa ng desisyon kung magpaplano magkano mapupunta sa local government, at ganoon din naman sa national agencies, mga DENR, NEDA, etc. So, but keep in mind that the only revenue source of government is taxes, because government is not a business entity. It does not make money from selling products. So taxation lang ang kanyang source of income. Ngayon, kadalasan, lalo na sa bansang ito, yung gastusin ng gobyerno ay mas malaki kesa dun sa kanyang tax revenue. Kaya nangangailangan ng pangungutang. Alright, it's either international assistance or international aid, pero hindi na tayo nag-international aid, nangungutang na lang tayo. Noong ang bansa ay tinuturing pa na isang maliit na bansa, kadalasan meron tayong nakukuhang international assistance. Kaya lang yung mga international assistance ngayon hindi naman ay kadalasan nga merong strings attached. Kaya as much as possible, hindi rin naman maganda para tayong namamalimos, no, nanghihingi ng pera sa ibang bansa. Mas independent na tayo ngayon to a certain degree, kaya ngayon nangungutang na lang tayo. No? So merong dalawang paraan ng pangungutang, yung through yung bonds, o yung pangungutang ng gobyerno locally, no, sa mga Pilipino siya nangungutang sa mga bangko, sa mga yung bumibili ng bonds, paraan niya ng pangungutang, or international foreign loans, no, katulad ng utang natin sa World Bank, sa ADB, etc. So government has many forms of taxes to choose from. So just so you know, tatandaan nyo, no, taxation lang kanyang source of income. Excuse me. Or selling assets, but that's not normally done, no? Yung pag-privatize ng mga assets ng bansa. So normally it's really just taxes. Now, taxes are not benign. Ibig sabihin, when you tax, there are potential implications. So maaaring sa perspective ng gobyerno, hindi, gusto ko lang namang mag-generate ng tax revenue. Pero ang impact niyan might be several layers. Hindi lang yung simpleng nagbayad ng taxes ang mga tao. It could affect behavior, no? Kung matatandaan niyo yung isang unang punto na ginawa ko. It could affect behavior. At it could increase, let's say, inequality. So the objectives of taxation other than revenue generation, is that it must be fair, just. No, the other is that it does not infringe on efficient choices. So in other words, kung ang choice ng consumer at saka ng firm ay X, dapat X pa rin ang kanilang choices even if they are taxed. If their choices change as a result of taxation, then it is not efficient taxation. All right. So dapat yung choices under efficiency are preserved when they're taxed. So fair taxation at saka efficient taxation. Okay, so sa principles ng taxation, meron tayong mga basic na guide, no? First is the benefit versus ability to pay principles. So ito, the benefit to pay simply points to that to the situation wherein individual pay taxes in proportion to the benefit they receive from government. So ibig sabihin yung benefit principle sa sa benefit principle sa taxation refers to people pay more taxes if they get more from government. Ibig sabihin mas marami silang pakinabang sa public, let's say public resources, public services, then benefit principle dictates that they should pay more. Okay? Now, the ability to pay naman, the ability to pay principle hinges on what people's incomes are. So in other words, the ability to pay principal, as stated here, no, it's the amount of taxes people pay should be based on how much they're making or their wealth. Okay, so the ability to pay principal is termed as redistributive. It's a redistributive siya. It's like a redistribution of income. The ability to pay principal, although unfortunately cannot be used to the extreme, because if you always disproportionately tax those who have more money, it could discourage people from being productive. Kasi ang idea, di ba, napag-aralan naman natin that those who are very productive tend to have more money. Kasi they have more money, they have more productive, the marginal revenue product nila mataas, etc., which is the basis for wage, etc. Then people would like to be productive. But if you're taxing the most productive exorbitantly, na disproportionately malaki talaga ang taxes nila, they might be discouraged kasi let's say nakukuha na lang, let's say ang sweldo nila 100,000 kasi nga productive sila. Tataksan mo ng 70%, edi 30,000 na lang matitira sa kanya. There will come a point wherein this person might be discouraged from working anymore. And you don't want that because these are people that are very productive, diba? But you do want a portion of their income para naman tulungan yung mga not as productive kasi hindi mga nasa laylayan, ika nga. Kasi walang mag-aalaga dito sa mga nasa laylayan ito kasi meron din namang reason kung bakit sila mahirap, no, na napag-aralan na rin natin. Kung bakit may taong maliit ang sweldo, kung bakit may mga taong walang access sa income. Okay. The other principle of taxation is the horizontal and vertical equity. Ito naman ay, kung mapapansin nyo, it pertains to equity. So, dito, essentially, pag sinabing horizontal equity, those who are equal, ibig sabihin yung, kasi magkaranggo sila, pareho sila ng status, alright, pareho sila ng trabaho, those are equal, pareho sila ng ginagawa. Then they should be taxed equally. Pareho dapat taxes nila. Pagka vertical equity naman, then this states that this refers to how people who don't belong to the same level should be taxed. Although ito medyo iffy to kasi hindi pa nakakasundo how should that be addressed. No? So vertical equity refers to how people not belonging to the same category of income should be treated. But there's no general consensus as to how vertical equity should be applied. All right, katulad nga nung this is similar to what I said about yung earlier, no? Because they don't belong to the same income bracket, halimbawa, then dapat exorbitant ba? Gaano mo ba itatax yung mga mayayaman as opposed to doon sa mga hindi kasing yaman? Kasi this could discourage efficiency. Tsaka yung idea kasi na those who don't, yung ano naman, yung benefit principle might be violated, no? Kasi in effect, those who have less in life tend to use more public services than those who have more. So yung benefit principle, di ba, parang those who use more should pay more. Kaya lang, so you have to balance that. Kaya itong vertical equity is something that's not as clear-cut as yung sa horizontal equity. Medyo mas malinaw yung horizontal equity kasi kung pareho sila ng income, it makes sense na pareho ng kanilang taxes. Di ba? So in effect, one issue is yung progressive taxation. So better off people pay more taxes. That's progressive taxation. So parang yung ba sinabing 10% ang ang kanilang income, I'm sorry, ang kanilang tax. So kung 100,000 ang ano mo, di 30% ang income tax rate. So kung 100,000, di 30,000 ang bayad mo na tax. Kung 200,000, di 60,000, etc. That's progressive taxation. No? So ngayon, or pwede rin naman na kapag umabot ka ng 1,000,000 ng income mo, hindi na 30%, maring 35 na. That is progressive taxation. So essentially, those that have more will pay more taxes, or those have more income. Pag regressive taxation naman, essentially what happens in effect is that those with lower income pay more taxes. And how did this happen? Parang hindi naman yata logical yon. In effect, ganun ang nangyayari. Hindi siya income, hindi to nakikita sa income tax, nakikita to sa sales tax. Kasi kapag ang tax mo, let's say basic commodities ang may tax. Ang basic commodities ang bumibili niyan mahihirap. Halimbawa, kasi yung mga mayayaman hindi na bumibili ng basic commodities, bumibili na sila ng mas sophisticated na commodities. So essentially, ang natatax lang yung mahihirap kasi tax on basic commodities yun eh. That would be regressive taxation kasi essentially, lumaki yung tax ng mga mahihirap kasi sila lang naman yung bumibili ng mga basic commodities. No? Alam ba, mga basic commodities, let's say mas mataas ang taxes sa sachet na shampoo. Kadalasan kasi ang gumagamit ng sachet na shampoo ay from the lower income bracket. No? So, yung mga mayayaman bumibili ng yung nakabote. Halimbawa lang naman, hindi ko naman sinasabi na may tax talaga yung sachet na shampoo. Pero that would be an example of regressive taxation. Okay? So kapag ka naman direct taxes na tinatawag, these are directly levied on individuals or firms, katulad ng income tax, inheritance tax, no? Sa inyong may mga, kung meron man sa inyong mga mayayaman at may mamanahin sa magulang or sa mga kung sino mang family members, these are direct taxes na magbabayad kayo when you receive the income or when you receive the inheritance, gift tax, etc. Kapag indirect taxes naman, those are taxes na hindi nyo naman directly binabayaran. Binabayaran nyo lang sila kapag may bibilin ka o pag bumili kayo ng produkto. Those are indirect taxes, no? Katulad ng cigarette tax, import tax, excise tax, sales tax, etc. So final words about public choice theory. So dito na natin i-wrap up, no? First, government makes decisions regarding expenditures based on the perceived gaps in society, with the ultimate goal of maximizing social welfare. Tandaan nyo, ang basic objective ng government is supposed to maximize social welfare in contrast to the individual consumer and the individual producer. All right. So yung decision making niya should be guided by this objective, which is to maximize social welfare. So this refers to decisions regarding how to spend. Kaya nga siya public choice kasi decision making yan eh. How the government decides or what the government decides when it comes to spending is public choice, under public choice theory, kasi public decision making. Second, government has to strike that balance between efficiency and fairness when it comes to taxation. So, alam na natin yung principles ng efficiency and then alam din natin yung principles ng fairness, no? So, yun yung sinabi nating fair, just, benefit versus ability to pay, progressive versus regressive, as well as to make sure that the tax is benign or does not affect choices. So striking that balance takes wisdom. takes political as well as economic wisdom. Okay, keep in mind also that corruption disrupts the creation of an efficient and fair public choice. What is corruption? When your government is maximizing, or when your leaders are maximizing their own benefit, that will contradict the objective of maximizing social welfare. When you have a government that is led by people that are trying to maximize their individual welfare, then that will go against the maximization of social welfare. Kasi in many instances, what is good for society will not benefit an individual, one individual. Collective kasi yung benefit kapag society. And dito nagkakaroon ng problema kasi dito nag-uumpisa ang corruption. Kasi then ang gagawin nung namumuno ay i-maximize niya yung kanyang benefit instead of yung social benefit. So private benefit wins, or the maximization of private benefit wins over the maximization of social benefit. And so there will be corruption that is called corruption as in effect. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 16. So that's public choice theory in a nutshell. Okay, ang susunod nating pag-aaralan ay we have 10 minutes left. No? So I'll just start this chapter and we'll finish this next Thursday. This next chapter is about efficiency versus equality, the big trade-off. This is under the purview, or in the purview of what we call development economics. No? Tandaan natin, efficiency refers to how to the biggest bang for the buck, no? How much you can get, as much as you can get from resources, decisions that will lead to maximum profit, to maximum individual welfare. Equality, on the other hand, refers to in a sense fairness, justice, or like which may or may not be efficient. And so, but nevertheless, these are two things, and we will examine them more closely. These are two things that are, when you analyze, are equally important. Okay, fundamental question muna. Efficiency or equity? As I said earlier, the market guarantees efficiency in terms of use and distribution of resources and allocation of goods. Pinag-aralan na natin to, di ba? How to distribute goods efficiently, how to allocate goods efficiently, how to make choices, whether labor or capital, more labor, more capital, however you decide is based on efficiency. But also keep in mind the market does not have ethical or moral values. And its only driver is optimality. Ang kanyang objective is to be as efficient as possible, which may or may not be, in many cases it's not, may not be equitable. No? So equality is mainly a moral issue. No? It's about justice. But there is an efficiency aspect to it though. Equality drives peace kasi. Pagka meron kang equality, you cannot really say that equality is only parang for the bleeding heart, for the mga awain. It does have a functional use, which is that because there's equality, you have more peace. Really, I cannot overemphasize the benefit from peace. Many things can happen because you have a peaceful environment, that people get along. There's no social tension. With social tension comes crime. If there's no equality, you'll have more people that are disenchanted, disfranchised. Then you'll have tension. When you have tension, the risks grow. The risk and uncertainty grow. And when you have those, it will be very difficult to look for the most efficient solution. Okay? So different concepts of equality. First is political rights. So political equality. So this refers to the right to participate and make political and other social decisions. So ibig sabihin, when you have political equality, everyone has the right to participate and make political and social decisions. When you when you prevent sectors of society from participating in making social and political decisions, then you have political inequality. Second is economic opportunities. So this would be like more of like equality in terms of opportunities. So this would be everyone should have the right to access to the best education, healthcare, training, and jobs, regardless of race, gender, religion, etc. So this refers to opportunities, equality of opportunities that could lead to better welfare or better standards of living. So pagka meron kang issues ng okay, hindi siya magkaka-access sa education kasi babae siya or something, no? Or hindi siya pwede sa healthcare kasi katutubo siya, or hindi siya pwede sa training kasi hindi siya galing sa political party na to, ganun. That would be inequality in economic opportunities. Okay. So economic outcomes, inequality or equality in terms of economic outcomes. This refers to people, people, Filipinos, whoever, members of society should have equal wages. So if you have the same capabilities, the same skills, then you should have the same wages. If you're contributing the same to the revenue of the company, then you should have the same wage. You should have the same access to services, consumption, etc. They should all be equal. The only thing that may make a difference in terms of how much you're making should be effort. Ibig sabihin, kung mas masipag ka, mas marami kang kikitain. Pero kung magkasing sipag kayo, magkasing talino kayo, dapat parehong sinusweldo nyo, dapat pareho ang inyong rights and privileges. That is equality in economic outcomes. Okay. So the current trend in the world is the intervention of government in the marketplace and the introduction of social safety net. See, sa kasalukuyan, may mga bansa na mas malaki ang role ng government sa pag-assist sa kanilang mga mamamayan, no? So yung tinatawag na yung mas malaki ang social safety net ng gobyerno. May mga bansang ganun. Tayo hindi. Pero may mga bansa na malaki ang social safety net, no? Ito normally people refer to them, or some economists refer to them as yung welfare state kasi libre ba, no? Isang bansa, ba Canada, libre ang healthcare diyan. Libre na ang healthcare. Sa atin, hindi. No? So, mas malaki ang safety net sa Canada kasi ang healthcare doon, lahat, regardless, basta Canadian citizen ka, or I think even kapag ka Canadian resident ka lang, may access ka na to the same healthcare. Sa atin, hindi. No? So, magkaiba yung quality. So, tapos may mga bansa na may subsidy na sa housing. Those are more welfare state. Yung kumbaga mas may dependence ang mamamayan sa kanilang gobyerno. Now, of course, may trade-off yon. Mas malalaki taxes nila. Kaya naman nagagawa ng gobyerno yon, ng kanilang gobyerno yon, kasi mas malalaki ang taxes. So in other words, parang trade-off yon. O sige, magbabayad kami ng mas malaking tax, but we will rely more on you as a result. No? So yun ang tinatawag na welfare state. Now, point to make is the market is responsible for efficiency in terms of production and pricing of goods and services, while the government manages the economy and provides a safety net for the poor and the marginalized. So parang paghahati ng role sa isang market economy na mas may welfare state na situation, yung pagiging welfare state niya actually creates conditions for efficiency, for the market to be more efficient, no? So parang sige, ikaw market, kayong mga buyers and sellers, you take care of efficiency and I will take care of the poor, sasabihin naman ng gobyerno, no? So okay, we will end here kasi it's 11 o'clock. Please continue to read. This is chapter 17 yata to. This is chapter 17, efficiency versus equality, and we will finish the course on Thursday. Okay? Sige, maraming salamat, and I'll see you all